Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel after a bit of a hiatus. Again, today's topic comes from a post that I believe I was meant to see. One of my subscribers commented on my channel that there's something that new came up that I should probably talk about, and it was left sort of ambiguous as to what it was. I went to my usual sources and I came across this post pretty much first thing. So I would assume this is what the big news seems to be. And keep in mind, I don't know if this is a valid post. I don't know if it's legitimate, but just going off the assumption that it is. As the post suggests, as the post reads, Kathleen Kennedy says that she thinks maybe Rian Johnson was scared off from doing his trilogy from the backlash he got doing The Last Jedi. And here's the thing, I'm not making the topic of this video about that because I don't feel the need to further discuss giving credence to people's outrage and perpetuating the idea that if you hold your breath, stomp your feet, and cry hard enough in a childish rage, you'll get what you want. And I don't support that. I support bending that 40-year-old man over your lap and giving them the spanking that they clearly never got. Because how embarrassing. Seriously. But I digress. Let's move on to what I do want to talk about. And it's this final sentiment down at the bottom, where Kathleen says that she's approached by pretty much everyone who gets the job for directing a Star Wars movie, and they always ask her what to expect. So I wanted to dedicate this video to all those directors out there who might find themselves with this job eventually at some point, but also I wanted to extend this to anyone making fan films, because quite frankly, anyone making any kind of Star Wars content whatsoever is going to eventually deal with the same kind of nutbags that are out there. So yeah, I think this video just pretty much applies for anyone in that field. So if this somehow comes across Kathleen Kennedy's desk, if you just want to show them this video, I'll handle it from here. You just hand me over to whoever is asking you like what to expect. I'll break the news to them, all right? Where to begin? First off, hi, I'm Dylan. Nice to meet you. I think the first thing that you should understand is that you are going to be exposed to a fandom that does, in fact, have a history of overreacting. Which is obviously why you're even asking, what can you expect? Because by now, obviously, you've heard the sentiment, no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. A sentiment that has haunted this fandom since before the prequels. So you're dealing with a fandom with a portion of the population that has a long history of knee-jerk reactions, pathetic screaming on the internet, and bad faith takes just across the board. And so when you understand you're dealing with stupid people, you have to expect what you're going to get from stupid people. And take it from someone who's talked about the inconsistent logic of so many hateful people on the internet over the years. You're going to deal from things as inconsistent as, on one hand, someone saying, why is there all these worthless spinning attacks happening in Star Wars? And in the other hand, in another piece of Star Wars that they do like, they go, hey, look at this guy doing these worthless spinning attacks. Oh, isn't that just some creative fun right there? And others who will, honest to God, wag a finger at you telling you that the child murderer wouldn't stand for SA. So you just gotta learn to very abruptly tell these people, just in your own head, fuck off. You're dealing with people who want to like Star Wars and want to hate Star Wars at a flip of a coin. Whatever they decide is going to be their thing that they deem as the outside thing. There's no stopping. There's no logical conversation you can have with these people, all right? A lot of these individuals are aligned with people like the Fandom Menace, and quite frankly, those people's political alignments are with people who would utterly spit in George Lucas's face. So pretty much everyone in that group, that entire segment, that entire section, you can just go ahead wholesale, just toss to the wayside, because you don't need to even attempt to try and negotiate or reason with those people. They're not going to be reasoned with. You're dealing with people that have built a career around lying to their audiences and building mountains out of molehills that they've self-confessed to. So trying to deal with people who are going to be upset no matter what you do is just a losing battle. The only thing you can do is focus on appeasing and pleasing the people that you know you can reason with. That's going to be your target audience. Star Wars fans who actually hold the values of Star Wars in their heart. Obviously, there's outliers for every situation. Obviously, there's exceptions for every rule. You just have to understand that you're producing an artistic product that is going to be reviewed by the entire world. Unfortunately, in the world, there are people who are shitbags, and there's really nothing you can do about it. 40-year-old virgins who've never felt the touch of a woman or man that can't control themselves because Star Wars is their outlet. Star Wars is their only source of comfort, which is sad. You know, that's who you're going to be ending up dealing with on a large basis, and it's going to feel like there's just this overwhelming number of people dogpiling you from every direction, and it's going to suck because it's going to feel like all you're seeing is negativity, all you're seeing is criticism, and a lot of that criticism is just frankly going to be fabricated. It's going to be they're upset because the sun rose, and they're going to be upset because the sun set. That's the people you're dealing with. I cannot possibly stress enough how illogical of an audience that this group of people that you're going to be dealing with actually is. Just need to come to accept that, and it's the sooner you accept that, the sooner this whole thing is going to go so much smoother for you in the long run. The only piece of advice I can tell you is to just tell your story. Tell the story exactly as you want to tell it. Don't flake midway through the production because you're hearing some knee-jerk reactions from people who have not seen the full story. You have to commit, and you have to see your story through to the very end exactly as you imagined it. Because I cannot tell you how disappointing and heartbreaking it is as a fan to see these people with these creative ideas, and all these times I've seen in the aftermath where people go, oh, why didn't we get this story? This would have been so much better than what we would have gotten, from the same exact people who verbally castrate you on the internet, all right? These people, don't listen to them, all right? Tell your story exactly as you want to tell it. That is the most important thing that you can take away from this video, okay? Because you're not going to appease the people who are already committed to being angry. That's a lost cause. Don't bother. There's no point in appeasing the people whose job it is to work those people up into a lunacy for money, for clicks, for views, while simultaneously having the political beliefs that wipe their ass with the beliefs of Star Wars. It's a complete, I think the word's oxymoron. It's just moronic, really. Tell your story from start to finish. Because I would much rather a creator be creative and tell the story they've wanted to tell than hear about, well, I had these initial ideas, but the fans were really freaking out, so I course corrected last second and did some different thing to try and appease them. There's no point. Start to finish, tell your story. Because, spoiler alert, regardless of what story you tell, there's going to be people on the internet screaming their head off that you killed Star Wars. These are the same people who cried that George Lucas killed Star Wars, then begged for him to come back. Then every single time he promotes a Disney product or sides with Disney or Bob Iger, guess what they do? They seem to suffer from a case of temporary memory loss, and then they scream that George Lucas killed Star Wars again. And they wonder why he's never, ever, ever coming back to Star Wars. Ever. Keep that in mind also. These people drove the creator of Star Wars away from Star Wars. That is who you're dealing with. But I think I've hammered that point home hard enough. Now, at this point, I've probably already spoken enough to give you the impression, what's the point? Like, why would I even subject myself to this level of immaturity, this level of childishness, the death threats, the insults? Why would I even bother trying to make something for this community of people that has no self-control? Because if you endure and you ignore and push aside the childish rampage of perpetually on the internet losers and just focus on your goal. Focus on telling your story. From everything that I've seen, even in the parts of Star Wars that I particularly don't like or I have criticisms for, there's always going to be someone out there that takes something away from that takes some level of appreciation from that builds on that creativity or is inspired by something that this creator has made. It can be as little as just the design of a character, the look of a character that inspires someone to painstakingly go to the effort of building a costume from the ground up, or sees a character in this story that represents them, where they feel like they're being seen because that character represents them in Star Wars. The amount of times I've seen children dressing up as their favorite character and the way they light up at conventions, at Disneyland locations, when they see the characters that they've grown up with, that they've watched on TV, that they've dressed themselves up as, and they see that character in person and their eyes light up and they run to them, they get a hug from them, a handshake, a pat on the back, a head scruff. That's what you're fighting for. That's what you're building for. Because from what I've seen is inevitably at some point something that's used as a collective punching bag for the internet. Eventually that group of people gets tired, they wander off. Sure, there's still the shitbags out there that will just keep beating that dead horse for as long as it's like stimming for them, really. Regardless, the backlash, the majority of the backlash eventually dies down, and then you can start seeing the beauty. You can start seeing the love. You can start seeing the people who appreciate the effort that you did, the artistic creativity that you showcased. And I would like to think that somewhere inside, you'll at that moment recognize that you've created something that will have a legacy that will last generations. And that's the important takeaway. That's why you do what you do. That's why you endure what you endure. That's why I do what I do when I have to relentlessly deal with shitbags on the internet. I've long since learned to not let those people get me down, because those people cannot be appeased. They look for reasons to hate. They defy the very teachings of Star Wars. And as far as I have found, following the path that George Lucas himself set Star Wars on has been my guideline through so much turmoil and bullshit. Everything else falls away. And once you have that realization, once you get past the smog, the sunrise you get to see is so much more beautiful. It's just the passing of hate. I've watched repeatedly in the Star Wars community, in the Star Wars fandom, any piece of Star Wars media go from being absolutely despised to then, I don't like it, but I just don't really want to talk about it, to, yeah, it's all right. To, oh yeah, I really like this. I actually really like this character. To, this is one of the best things that ever happened to Star Wars. It happens every single time. It's happened with the prequels. We're seeing it happen with the sequels, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. And we see it happen with Star Wars TV shows. We see it happen with countless characters like Ahsoka Tano and The Stranger, where they're initially disliked at first. And then suddenly, after some time has passed, guess what? The fans who appreciate those characters suddenly start stepping out. They start voicing their opinion. They start voicing their love for those characters. And the result is as clear as day on the internet. There are people out there who appreciate these characters, who love these characters, who dress up as these characters, like Ahsoka or The Stranger or Rey, that go from being absolutely hated by the fandom to, they had their moments, to, I adore them. I love them. Do the people who detest those characters suddenly stop existing? No, they're always going to be out there. They're always going to take the opportunity to remind you how much they hate something, because it's far easier to just keep punching down at someone than to be an adult and move the fuck on. Star Wars is an investment. You have to be willing to endure a seemingly never-ending slog of bullshit to get to the other side and see what this community is actually capable of. And once you've made it through, once you've weeded through the dirtbags, once you've weeded through the unreasonable, the community that is there, that is so full of love and passion, to know that you've inspired that part of the community, to me, that is something that I would imagine is worth almost anything. I would also like to take a moment to tell you that there are also people out there who do have grievances. And it is important at some point to listen to the grievances. 9 times out of 10, you're going to find hypocrisy, inconsistencies, and just flat out idiotic complaints that just don't work. But there are also people out there that do have good faith criticisms. Not every person that's going to criticize you is doing so out of some malicious, toxic hatred. Those people are going to be very easy to spot so long as you can focus past the noise of the toxic one. Because what the toxic community has done that has utterly screwed having any kind of rational conversation with people who do in fact have good faith takes, good faith criticisms that should be listened to and learned from so that these mistakes might not happen again in the future, is they virtually word their criticisms the same as the people who are rational, but they're so over the top, so vitriolic, so toxic with how they word what their distaste is, what they disdain about what's new. Is it can be very easy for someone to just see the beginning outline of the sentiment and then immediately assume it's leading to the toxicity. Give people the benefit of the doubt and be open to accepting some criticism. Be open to being willing to course correct, tweak things, adjust, rather than wholesale rip down what you were planning from start to finish and reworking the entire narrative to make something completely new to appease people over complaints that they're going to invent more complaints for regardless of what you do. Because if anyone likes to nitpick things, like for the tiniest insignificant details, you know who the fuck you are, Star Wars theory. It's Star Wars fans. So just learn how to balance seeing through the petty bullshit with the more justified grievances, and try and find a way to flex. Because as for all the history I've had with filmmaking, I've learned that there's always a way to flex your story, to tell it better without actually changing everything about the direction you're trying to go. It takes a minute sometimes, but like with the Star Wars fandom, like with the Star Wars franchise, if you just hold on and if you just give a little time, something beautiful comes from it. That's all I got to tell you. If you're strong enough, it is worth it.